What's up, Hoth heads? It's that time of year again, and the Kessel Toy Run is in full swing. Going on now through December 18th, you can join the force and donate a toy to a hospitalized child who won't be able to make it home for the holidays. You can find out how to donate and the details for this episode on makingstarwars.net or by emailing thekesseltoyrun@gmail.com. Thanks, and may the force be with you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Hoth Topics, a podcast about Star Wars. I am not an ace pilot. My name is Ian, and joining me as always is my co-host, also not an ace pilot, John. How are you doing, John?
That is accurate. I am not an ace pilot.
Nor am I. But you know who are ace pilots?
Aces?
Aces. And where do we see the aces, John?
Usually at the back end of a pack of cards near the jokers and the instructions.
I can't argue with your logic there, but I can also tell you another place you find aces is on Star Wars Resistance. It's time for Season 2 of Resistance Recon. How you feeling about that, John?
Feeling alright about that, specifically. Temperature-wise in this room, it is getting warmer and warmer, and it's supposed to be fall, and I don't understand. Let's get into the nonsense.
Agreed. The sooner we get into the nonsense, the sooner it will no longer be this hot in this room.
And we can go get wings.
Yes, wings. You know what also has wings? The ships.
Aces. Oh, dang, you always get that one wrong.
Well, I mean, kind of right. But we are on, we're going to go ahead and review the first 3 episodes of Season 2 of Resistance. Hypothetically, or theoretically, it's the last season? Is that what they've said?
Yes.
Huh. I wonder why it's, hasn't been, is it just not being received as well as the previous ones?
I don't know, but I have a feeling because it kind of came out of nowhere that it's more of a, they kind of planned this to be a short series, a short-run series, which to me kind of makes sense based on where it takes place in the timeline. How we've with episode 1 of season 2, we have now kind of caught up with the sequel. No, we haven't caught up with the sequel trilogy, but we are now in sequel trilogy.
Yeah, we're concurrent with it.
Yeah, I can't say words. Sequel trilogy time start.
Time start.
Maybe this will this season will kind of end towards the beginning or towards the end of The Last Jedi. That makes sense, yeah, because
right now
The Last Jedi takes place directly after.
Well, right now it's currently happening during The Last Jedi.
Yeah, that would make sense because of the events that happened in Episode 1,
right? Which
we will talk about,
right,
soon.
Or was that 2? They didn't show up until 2.
Yeah, Episode 2. That's correct. Because Episode 1, things happened that we will talk about soon. Speaking
of Episode 2, let's talk about Episode 1. And let's go into what happened in that episode. John, hit me.
Well, real quick, before we do that.
Or don't hit me.
I'm not. I mean, I will later, but that's an entirely different thing. Before I started watching the episodes of the season 2, I wanted to kind of go back and see like what we remember of season 1, what we're kind of looking forward to with this season. See?
Yep.
That being said, I now need to find my tablet, untangle it from all the wires, and read a prepared message.
I had no foreknowledge of this, so
I had a lot of time in the weeks I've been waiting for Ian to catch up on these episodes. So, my before thoughts.
So what I'm hearing is this is going to be my fault.
Always. Boo Ian. Boo. Please hashtag that. Like and subscribe. Sign up for our Patreon.
We don't have one of those.
What are the other YouTube things? Check out our Twitch channel.
Share.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway.
If we get 1,000 likes on this video, we will wrestle a Nexu. I don't know.
That sounds really dangerous. So, my before thoughts. I didn't like Resistance at first, mostly due to the animation style. Things seemed too bright, but as the series progressed, I think, Ian, you remember me talking about that. Reminded me of Ruby, or like when it first started coming out, or like all the weirdly 3D but 2D animes that are up on Netflix.
Yep.
I don't like that style.
Yep.
But as the series progressed, I think the animation team really got it together and figured out how to light these models in a way that still, like, it added tone to the episodes as opposed to everything just being bright and
some dynamic
bright.
lighting happening.
Thank you, exactly. As for the content of the show, I also wasn't too excited for it. I'm one of the Star Wars fans that's brain lives in the era of the Galactic Civil War. But that being said, I don't hate the new content, as I've tried to explain to Ian several times. It's just, I recognize that it isn't like directly marketed for me specifically, and I'm fine with that because, again, I see new young fans of Star Wars, so that means the brand will live on, and I can be grouchy about things, but also be excited that kids are getting excited about Star Wars.
This prepared statement has a lot of side tangents.
It has a ton of side tangents because I should have read it before I started recording it. Oh, this is a great analogy. This is going to be fun to edit together for me later. Clearly see it as a Star Wars. It's more of a... I like Tony Hawk Pro Skater more than I like Tony Hawk Underground. Both are about skateboarding. One's just a little bit more different than the one I grew up with.
Way to date us, man.
Isn't it? High five.
Yeah,
found it.
We are old.
I've also said that being said in this paragraph like 8 times.
To be fair.
So, anyways, I grew to enjoy the show a lot more than I thought I would. I still can't wrap my head around how Kazs, a trained soldier and pilot, is so bad at doing the things he does sometimes.
Oh boy.
Which is great because this actually comes around to the last episode we're going to talk about, where he actually gets to do stuff that he's trained to do, and well. I'm excited to see where this season takes us. I'm excited that it is the last season. That came out wrong. As Americans, we tend to drag out shows until we run out of plot and force the show into the dirt, so a short series, perhaps leading into something post-Rise of Skywalker, will be a really good... We know it's going to end, so the stakes are so much higher this season. And that's my prepared statement.
Good.
Thank you.
No, I
would like to thank the Academy.
As the Academy of the Jedi Academy, we reject your proposal, as we know you are a Imperial sympathizer.
Fact.
No, I agree with pretty much all of what you said there. I never really had a big problem with the animation, but I do agree with you that the lighting got better as it went on.
It got so much better this season. It's like the difference between watching the Clone Wars movie and
late Clone Wars.
Like it's night. Well, to me, it's night and day. But I can see how no one cares.
Well, I can definitely see that it's improved, and that's a good thing. I feel you on the Kazs thing on a spiritual level. I actually think that my interest in the show is diminished as it went on, and that might be one of the biggest reasons, is because the main character is taking a really long time to be competent. But I agree with what you said as well in terms of, like, we are not the target audience for this. I realize it's not targeted at me specifically, and that I can still find nuggets of things to really, enjoy and hold on to in the series. So I'm also excited to see where it goes and kind of the greater implications and the links that it'll have going forward. I just think I'm not as super excited about it as I was when it first happened. And I think the reason is I screwed up in getting into Resistance and watched Mandalorian before that. And Mandalorian is targeted more towards our generation of Star Wars fans. And I watched that and I saw what that is. I think it may have unfairly tinted my view of Resistance.
Yeah, going to like what you're saying, like it's not really geared towards our age demographic.
Right.
One of the notes that I had specifically about that, it's more specifically about how mine and yours kind of annoyance that Kazs was shown to be a competent, or supposed to be a competent pilot and like member of a government-funded military, as opposed to like Luke Skywalker, who was a rebel who just got into a ship.
Right. But
we never actually see him doing anything really soldiery or piloty. And so, like, that, my note was, I may be putting a little too much thought towards a kid's show. Not that it being a kid's show is a bad thing.
Yeah, that seems to be a common...
And then in parentheses next to that, like, G.I. Joe was supposed to be made up of the best soldiers, yet they never killed anyone in the show.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of that thing. Lasers. Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah.
And just because it's a kid's show doesn't mean that adults can't enjoy it.
Right. Absolutely. No, I concur with that entirely. I think where the Achilles heel with that really is the fact that all of Star Wars content is being linked. It weaves and creates an overall narrative, And that's when the little bits of like, oh, this guy's not super competent and this and that, but if you look at another Star Wars thing for another age group or something, you know, those things have to coexist in the same world, and I think that's where some of that frustration comes from. But it's not a deal breaker, and it shouldn't be for anybody. Like, that is what Star Wars is and has been, even before Disney got the license.
Yes.
You know, the expanded universe had stuff for everybody, and the new canon has the same, so...
Exactly.
That's what makes Star Wars unique. All right,
with all that out of the way.
Yeah.
What do you remember from last season? Or, like, what was the lead up to this season?
What was the lead up to this season? Well, Kazs was bad at being a spy. He was a bad spy, bad at spying and being one, a spy.
Fair.
And because he was bad at being a spy very much all of the time, the First Order kind of took over the Colossus platform and was causing all these sorts of trouble, looking for a spy who was bad at being a spy. And it kind of forced the platform itself to make a choice to either align with the First Order or not do that. And most of them decided to not do that. And the Colossus platform turned out to be a ship itself. And after a attempted hostile takeover by the First Order, the Colossus rose out of the sea and into the sky and took off forward into unknown space to meet up with the Resistance. All of that with the exception of Tam, who didn't take too kindly to the choice that they made and ended up siding with the First Order.
I have a lot of notes about that coming up in the next few episodes. Yeah. That pretty much sums up my notes. My notes are a lot shorter. Mine are, the jig is up. The First Order's secret plan to take over the Colossus doesn't go as planned, and the station nopes out of there into the unknown regions. Check with Ian.
See, I like your version better. See, mine makes me sound like a drowning, snoring, like, college professor. Yours is, like, all hip with the cool kid lingo, yo.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump into Season 2, Episode 1, titled Into the Unknown. My little summary, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Summary of it is the Colossus is in deep space, maybe near Dakar. They're not sure. Kazs and crew must go stabilize the gravity, but also have to deal with a First Order Rolly Boy who is trying to thwart them and send a message to the First Order. Meanwhile, Tam is with the First Order and is enlisted to become a pilot. Kazs tries to reach out to her on an encrypted comm link, but she ain't having nones of that. Yo. Ian.
Yeah, First Order droids will now, any rolling droids, droids, will now be referred to as Rolly Boys.
Fair.
I like that a lot. And yeah, no, I concur with that summary. Let's kind of get into some of the nitty-gritty of the episode then. So,
let me hit some of my my quick notes.
Yeah.
Do you have any those just kind of bullet pointed, more observational notes on your end?
Well, hit me with yours, and we'll see if any comes up in my brain.
I told you I was going to hit them later.
Yep.
So my first tiny note is animation is still getting better.
Ow! You hit me.
Oh, I get it. Got scared that you got stung by a bee. Also, Captain Phasma's in this. I miss her. Will she be in Rise of Skywalker?
My money's on yes.
Yeah, I feel like yes.
Because
if I've learned anything about Star Wars, it's just because you fall into something doesn't mean you're dead.
They can't Boba Fett her.
They Boba Fetted Boba Fett?
Yeah, they can't Boba Fett her.
I bet a lot of people thought you could have Boba Fett, but then Boba Fett got Boba Fetted.
Yeah, that's true. But when you look back, I feel like Phasma had a little bit more personality. Right. I'd love to see a Phasma v Finn rematch.
Yeah, maybe one that lasts a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And shows a little bit more stakes than what it's been every time.
Yep.
And then my last note is a really cool shot of hyperspace being reflected in Bucket's eyepiece.
Oh yeah.
So the camera cuts to them flying through hyperspace in the Colossus,
right?
And it slowly pans out to reveal we're looking at Bucket's eye, looking out the space dock, and I thought that was just a really cool cinematic shot.
I have a comment about Bucket that doesn't have anything to do with any of this.
You want him to have a head, don't you?
Well, I like his helmet. I like the look of him, but the helmet stays on. It's shown to be loose and fall off all the time, but it also stays on perfectly fine when he's in the back of Yeager's ship.
Ian, it's a cartoon.
No, They're not okay.
In the back of his ship.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about
like
that.
when they're flying and it's just wiggling around on his head back there. That bothers me. Anyway, yeah. No, I like that shot too. They did a little bit of playing with zero grav in this episode, which I enjoyed because we don't see a ton of zero grav in Star Wars, even though it takes place among the stars. What else? Yeah, I did like the playing around with zero grav. I liked that the First Order droid was shown to have like a mind of its own and protocols to like, sabotage things. Again,
I like that the turtle people were afraid of it. They're like, there's a demon down there. I'm not going down there.
Yep, nope. I think MVP for the episode was probably Niku and Tora. I think they kind of carried most of the personality. Wasn't a huge fan of... I think I was kind of expecting, since this was the first episode of the next season, I was kind of expecting Kazs to be a little bit more competent. He was not, but he was a little bit braver, I think.
Yeah.
Which I enjoyed. Like, and it's rough for me to... I think I've mentioned this in another Resistance Recon. It's really hard for me to criticize, this character, but I do it because I see so much potential in him as a character, and I'd like to see that grow. And I think we did at the end of this review. We've seen a little growth.
Yeah.
I hope it maintains.
Agree.
So overall, the episode is about them trying to, they're stranded in hyperspace. They actually don't have enough for another jump. They find out that they're relatively close to Takar, and they're going to head over there to the resistance base that they think is still there. Meanwhile, trying to repair all of the damage that happened to the ship in the battle from last season. Tora, Niku, and Kazs are all sent down to the engineering deck to fix a number of things, communications and the anti-grav system. Fun little cuts back to the bar where
everyone's just floating around having a great time.
And the gravity keeps turning on and off, and they just keep slamming into the floor. That was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. That was a funny little vignette. So they go down and they find out that this Imperial Rolly Boy, First Order Rolly Boy, excuse me, is down there causing a mucky muck, causing a havoc, and attempting to send a broadcast back. And they thwart the Rolly Boy and turn systems back on. And then Kazs does something dumb. What does he do, John? After communications are back, he decides to send a communication to somebody in the First Order.
Did you forget who it was? Because it seems like you're looking at me to try to give you the answer.
Well, I was asking you what they did. I was trying to pass the ball.
Right, I see.
And then you just...
I'm not good at sports ball.
You just stopped talking.
The problem was that you started that with, and then he does something dumb, and that could be one of many things.
That's true. Which is why I was trying to specify.
And then when I figured out what you're trying to get me to do, I didn't think it was as dumb, personally. Which kind of brings me to one of my notes on Tam.
Fair.
Now that Tam is officially separated from the story group, I guess.
Yep.
Not story group, but you know what I mean. And she's with the First Order, and she's trying to fit in. And I can see how a lot of people could rage, quote unquote, on Tam for joining the First Order. But I think people could forget that about her particular situation. Kazs and company hid everything they were doing from Tam since the start. When Kazs needed a ship, Yeager gave him the ship that Tam was repairing for herself. Tam was never invited to be part of the club. She was always an outsider, and I can see how she would continue to feel that way after she left the Colossus. The only people seemingly not to deceive her were members of the First Order, even though they're clearly deceiving her.
I absolutely agree with everything you just said, which is why what Kazs does at the end of the episode is stupid.
But Tam is his friend still, so he wanted to make sure she was okay. This is classic kids cartoon.
I know, but it was like everybody told him this is a huge security risk. He did it anyway. And what happened? I'll tell you what happened. Episode 2 happened. Before we go to that, any last minute comments on episode 1?
I have no idea what this quote is, but I'm pretty sure it's taken out of context. The First Order makes him tough and herdy. I have no idea what that's from.
Yeah, no, he's talking about the...
Rolly Boy?
The Rolly Boy. Because they thought they killed it. They thought they destroyed it in the last season. And
yeah.
Right.
Right.
He was like, they make him real tough, and then he puts his little electroshocker out.
Mm-hmm.
And Hurdy.
That's what it was.
That might have been the moment where I was like, oh.
Bless your heart.
But again, like, that being said, absolutely sounds like something I would say as like a player character in a video game,
right.
or in a D&D campaign or something. And make him tough and Hurdy.
I've got one note on things that aren't necessarily related to the plot, which I just thought was cool.
Yeah, let's hear it.
And it's about specifically the Colossus. The design of the Colossus as a starship, to me, is very interesting. Most sci-fi, we still treat spaceships like terrestrial aircraft, with a bridge towards the front and a long body than engines for lift and aerodynamics. The Colossus flies upright with the bridge at the center of the top, kind of like how the Enterprise bridge is, where it's like on the top of the saucer, and then a long downwards sloping body with engines along the long edge, so to speak. It's very unconventional to what we know of sci-fi, but in space, the same aerodynamic designs don't mean anything because there's no air resistance. So you can build ships like that, and the design reminds me of the Sun Crusher, if you remember that from Legends, except much bigger and definitely not able to fly through a planet or star.
Right.
That we've seen yet. Yeah, it could. Which would be impressive. So it's kind of cool to actually get to see the full ship in all of its broken glory, and we get to see it continuously throughout the season, which is nice.
I have one thing to add to that statement. I think one of the reasons why we still give spaceships an aerodynamic shape is because we expect them to be able to operate in atmosphere as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why, especially stuff like small fighter craft and stuff like that, still continues to have that dynamic shape in most sci-fi. But I agree with you. It is really cool to see such a unique ship design, and it really does give credence to the ship's name, the Colossus,
right?
Because it's a big boy. It's a big ship-a-doo. Let's get to Ep 2.
And we're going. All right.
Episode 2.
On to Episode 2.
Episode 2.
A quick salvage run.
Real quick.
Real
quick.
Go.
No.
Oh, gotcha.
Salvage run. Just real quick.
Real quick salvage run.
Yep.
The Colossus arrives at Dakar amid the rubble and detritus of the battle that took place at the beginning of The Last Jedi.
Excellent use of detritus.
Thank you. There's another one for seaward-based debris, and I cannot remember what it was. Flotsam. The flotsam and jetsam of the battle. Oh, so good. My buddy Jack would be proud of me.
Absolutely.
So blah, blah, blah. Took battle place in The Last Jedi with no base and no fuel. Kazs, in quotes, leads a team of pirates to the First Order dreadnought to retrieve some coaxium for the Colossus before the First Order arrives. They won't arrive, though. They don't even know where they are.
No, absolutely not.
Why would they know where they are?
It's not like they have some sort of device that just had a message sent to them that they can track.
Random notes. I actually have a note here that says stuff happens. I must not have paying attention at that part.
GG.
So there's a part where Tam is going out to get in a fighter, I think, or somewhere. I don't remember exactly where. She wouldn't have been in a fighter yet. Anyway, she's on the First Order ship.
Yeah.
And two troopers walking by talk about, oh, have you seen the new TS7s?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's a great callback to all the classic Star Wars helmeted troops talking about the newest vehicle models trope that Star Wars has. And I really appreciated that. Actually, you know what? Why don't you do your episode rundown before I just like...
For sure.
Notes.
Yeah, so in this episode, the Colossus arrives at Dakar, which, if you are unfamiliar, is the planet where the First Order base, the Resistance base is, at the end of The Force Awakens, and at the very beginning of The Last Jedi, that gets bombarded to rubble. It has, at this point, been bombarded to rubble, but the remains of the First Order dreadnought are still floating in space. After the horrific realization that they are not going to be getting any help from any resistance, there is a idea that they can salvage some coaxium, which is needed to power their hyperdrive, to get out of there, to actually go out and continue to survive and avoid the First Order. So Kazs gets the brilliant idea of trusting Sonara and pirate friends. Sonara seems down, but pirate friends not so much until they are reminded that there's probably a lot of good First Order swag that they can nick just sitting on board the Scuttle Destroyer. So they all kind of go over there and start fishing around. While this is happening, Tam has a very miniature crisis of confidence, which is ended almost immediately, and she ends up giving her comlink with Kaz's communication on it to her superior officer. They use that to track the Colossus to Takar. They show up at Takar, and the shooting begins. The Aces do not do so great at the shooting with the First Order, and it is kind of a race to the finish, getting the coaxium back on board the Colossus before the First Order ship, Star Destroyer, can end up destroying the Colossus, and they get out of there in the nick of time. That about sums it up for the episode, unless you have anything to add, John.
I do not. Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty succinctly. Do you have any notes on this? Any quick rando notes?
Yeah. So at the very end of the last episode, Tam has the message from Kazs, and she shuts it off, like, aggressively.
Mm-hmm.
And then my thinking was, oh, okay, that's it. She's done. Like, she's not, she doesn't care. And then the very first scene in this episode is her pulling it out and listening to it,
mm-hmm.
which is like, oh, she's gonna maybe have a change of heart. And then she turns it in, and then it switches back to being super aggressive about the whole thing because her superior officer agent lady, like, uses brainwashy talk to tell her what was on the recording, even though she didn't finish listening to it. And then when she sees the Colossus getting destroyed, she's got a soft spot again. Like,
I think one of the things you're forgetting is the reason she turned it in is because she got caught with it.
Yeah, but...
And I don't think she would have turned it in if Homeboy hadn't walked in on her with it.
Yeah, it's true.
Because she goes, are you gonna tell on me or whatever? And he's like, I'm gonna have to, or we're both gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
So to me, she kind of half-heartedly gave it over. Like, she knew it was the right thing for her new role, but I don't think she wanted to give it up. To me, when she went back to listen to it again, that was her going, maybe I've made a mistake here.
Sure. Okay. That's fair. I think it's one of those, like, holdovers from her betrayal not making
sense to you.
It made sense, but it didn't make all the sense. Does that make sense?
Her, like, joining the First Order in the first place?
Yeah, just some of the reasoning why she was angry and upset from the last season. I think I remember discussing this in the last season, and just kind of like, I just don't think they gave her enough reason to jump sides until your earlier readout of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where if you just watch it, you're just kind of like, well, screw you, Tam. It's ungrateful person. But
Tam,
then
they kind of wrote Tam to feel like an ungrateful friend.
Right.
Throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
But she's ungrateful because all these things that she's working on, Kazs has come in and just undercut all of it.
Yeah. No, and
I think maybe it's because I watched the episodes a few more times.
Right, and I think it also might be because we're seeing everything through the hero's eyes,
right.
The hero lens, and we know more than the characters do,
mm-hmm.
and that colors our opinions of it. And that's something that I didn't like. I'm trying to get out of that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was just kind of like annoyed with Tam's character, and then when I saw the flippy floppiness, I was just like, but at the same time, I get it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt in either of our minds that she's going to switch sides again by the end of this.
Absolutely not. They should be brave and not do it.
I know, right? Yeah. They won't.
No, they won't. Not in this one.
Well, I'm liking this kind of storyline. We didn't get it in Solo with him at the academy, and then changing his mind being there because it was a deleted scene,
right?
Which we'll talk about in the next episode. Seeing what the other side's training is, or seeing how the other side operates, for me at least harkens back to like Wedge until he's going off to the academy. Well, right. We assume it's the Imperial Academy, or like everybody was going to the academy, like that was the way out, regardless if you agreed with the doctrine, but like that was your way
Right.
to do something other than living on your desert planet.
If you recall, we did see Wedge as an Imperial cadet in Rebels, and we saw him defend.
Oh, we did. That's right. Yep. Good call.
Yep.
I'm interested to see how the First Order trains its new recruits. I'm sure there's going to be special exceptions to things because Tam is familiar with her commanding officer, and because she is a main character, so to speak,
right?
That it's not just going to be like Finn's brainwashing.
Well, they actually make a point to say she should be reprogrammed.
Right.
Yeah, and then the commander's like, Pyre's just like, no, leave her be. She's a good asset.
Yeah.
It wasn't Pyre, it was the agent whose name I forgot.
We should look that up, but
we
won't. All right, random notes on this episode before I go into my one big note of the whole thing. I was confused as to why the First Order forces fired on the derelict Colossus, or the derelict Dreadnought, instead of at the Colossus. When they first jumped into the system, they were just trying to destroy the Dreadnought. Because I guess they knew that there was salvagers on it, but tactically they should have fired at the Colossus, because that's the capital ship. Right. Like, why fire at wreckage when you could take out the enemy ship?
Right.
I understand it from this is a cartoon, and like we don't really need to have real world military tactics. And if I really want my brain to just accept it, I just go, they're destroying the Dreadnought as a denial of resources towards anyone else. Like,
sure.
And I've seen that in other sci-fi things where, like the Borg in Star Trek, this will be one of several Star Trek references I make tonight. Well, the Borg will come back and take all their wreckage so as not to let it get into other people's hands or whatever.
Yeah.
Skip, fire at the Colossus. Another Star Trek reference in this one. Side note, what's with sci-fi cultures relying on hyper-explosive fuel sources? Star Wars has its coaxium, which is unstable at best of times. In Star Trek, the Romulans' ships are powered by black holes, etc. Why can't we use safe energy, guys? Come on.
You realize that our rockets in today's world are just powered by rocket fuel.
By explosives, right.
Highly explosive.
I agree. We do have ion drives, but they're super inefficient, especially within a gravity well. But, come on, guys. You know, especially you Romulans, you use black holes to power your starships. That's dumb. They use singularities. It's basically black
If he makes one more Star Trek reference, I'm going to have to watch Star Trek.
I've got a lot of them in here. And then when the Aces were coming back from Flying Cap, Combat Air Patrol.
Tim, your comments.
Yeah, Tim. Oh, also,
we miss you, Tim.
This is specifically for Tim. The hot landing scene, which is when the Aces had to land their ships at just velocity in the hangar. It reminded me of all the awesome space battles in Battlestar Galactica, where Galactica had to nope out of there real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so many hot deck landings to get away from the Cylons. And then, in parentheses, nuclear-powered starships.
See, now, I've seen some Battlestar Galactica, so I don't need to watch... Well, I should finish it.
You should watch Battlestar Galactica.
I have. You've shown me some of it. I very much enjoy it.
So, do you have any small rando notes on this before I get into my finish thing?
I still love the pirates' whole, like, scavenger gear
just
thing.
Them being pirates.
Yeah, no, I love it. And they're definitely, like, more aggressive than, say... Well, not more aggressive. I would say more chaotic than, like, Hondo's pirates.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Anaka clan had the disadvantage of having Hondo as their leader.
Right, exactly. But I still love seeing... we were able to get a little bit more detail, like, up-close shots of them, and they're guys just, like, in scavenged stormtrooper armor, all that kind of stuff. Still love them. Really like Sonara as a character. I think she kind of completed her that betrayal arc very well, and now she's kind of like a middleman between the pirates and the Colossus. And yeah, no, I very much enjoy the I enjoy the pirates being there. I think they had some spice. One thing I was really disappointed in with this episode, and I think it's been something that has been consistent throughout the series, is that when they do in-atmosphere flying, it's really good and really cool. And when they do space flying, it just doesn't feel the same. I think it's missing something, and I think that might be because of the void of space.
Right.
So the way they make up for that in the movies is they just have a butt ton of lasers firing all the time.
Or
And
the ships are generally close to the capital ships, so you
Right.
have a frame of size reference of what's going on, size and speed.
exactly. And I feel like I think they need to up the speed in the space battles. And it felt very, very lacking to me in this episode. And that was a kind of a disappointment.
But I think that was intentional, leading into the next episode, to kind of emphasize how not good at being space pilots the Aces really are.
Right, but I have to judge it on when I first see
Fair.
it,
That's
and
fair.
not in the context of...
You didn't see Into the Future?
No, see, I can't...
You didn't use time
exactly.
portals.
Like, and I agree with you now. Like, going back and rewatching it, I think I will be more on that side. But my feeling in the moment when I first was watching that is that I was a little disappointed in it. And I think that's also an asset thing, you know, because we have so many more ships and lasers and fires and all that stuff in the movies. Yeah,
Nice.
I think that's it. I've
Okay.
got for 2.
So, one of the interesting things I took away from this, it has to do with Tam's storyline, which I'm excited that they kind of have this B story, so to speak, with Tam.
Yeah, me too.
Because not only does it give her character more screen time, because I always thought she was an interesting character, just we never really got to see her because she was always
Right.
being pushed aside by Kazs and Co.
Yeah, makes my frustration with her even less reasonable.
Yeah, this note, whatever. I should figure out a better way to transition into these.
This note
It just says ID numbers is a bad thing.
Explain yourself.
I will. I have a whole paragraph too. This episode has a strong message in Tam's storyline. Now that she is a full pilot with the First Order, or at least she is piloting for the First Order, I should say, she is only referred to by her number. She is reminded that she must wear her helmet even outside the cockpit. This kind of parallels Finn's stormy backstory, where he only knows himself as his FN number, which, going further into that, like, he is still being known by his First Order
Right.
affiliation. But I think this is different for Finn, because he's kind of made it his own. Weird side tangent. It's a psychological move on the First Order's part to attempt to program out individuality in its soldiers. When the individual is destroyed, all that remains is the collective. And then in parentheses, I've been watching a lot of Star Trek Voyager. Hella more collective parallels right now. The contrasts heavily with how the Republic trained the clones. At first, they only acknowledged the troopers by their CT number, but as the war progressed, they realized that the clones can be individuals as well, which is when we start seeing clones that aren't numbers but are nicknamed for their names, or they take their numbers and they make them their own, like Finn does. And then I have a quote from Rex, Captain Rex: "We're not programmed. You have to learn to make your own decisions." Which I thought was something that was very important. And then in the next episode, they just walked right over everything I wrote there, and that made me very sad. But I understood why they do the thing they do for story purposes.
Sure.
But I thought I'd found something, and I'm like, oh, I'm super deep. This is so cool. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, I have comments on that, but I think I'll wait till after we talk about the third episode stuff, because it correlates.
What's kind of interesting about that is I'd completely forgotten that Pyre or whoever was like, no, we shouldn't reprogram her. Oh, that's in the next episode, isn't it?
That is in this next episode.
Episode 3, Ian? How you
episode
feeling?
3.
All right.
Let's do it.
Season 2, Episode 3, Live Fire.
Live fire!
Pilots got a pilot.
Yo.
Well, better than they're piloting. Yeager and Kazs use some of the military training to put the Aces through the paces. Meanwhile, Tam does the same, but like First Order stylies.
Yeah.
Ian, what happened in Episode 3?
Well, Kaz does something useful, and does it well.
I agree. Is that it?
Yeah. No. No, Kaz and Yeager are put onto the Aces team because the Aces need to be better fighter pilots if they're going to survive this First Order hunt and not rely on just their racing abilities. It was good enough to stop, sort of chaotic, untrained pirates, but it wasn't good enough to stop trained military First Order pilots, not pirates.
Doing okay?
Pilots.
You doing okay over there, Ian?
I've got pilots and pirates. It's a problem. So I got to train up my Aces.
Makes sense.
So the Yeager starts putting the Aces through their paces, as you said before, very, very well alliterated.
Thank you.
And one of their faults is that they don't work well as a team because they're used to being racers. The most egregious example of this is Hype Faison, who does not want to be a team member, and Kazs and Yeager kind of take down the Aces relatively easily in a training exercise on this ice moon. So Hype needs to be convinced by Tora to kind of come and be one with the team, and does so, and ends up saving the day after a training exercise goes bad with a giant manta ray ice monster that comes out and eats Yeager, or tries to eat Yeager's ship. And the power of teamwork is used to save him and save the day. Meanwhile, over in the First Order, Tam gets her first taste of flying in a TIE fighter, is sent by, I'm just going to call her Gulag Sergeant. I don't remember what her name is, but she sounds like the kind of person who will send you to the Gulag if you do not perform adequately. And Gulag Sergeant goes ahead and...
Weird flex.
Yeah. Gulag Sergeant goes ahead and sends out remote X-Wings as targets for the recruits to shoot down, and whoever shoots the most down becomes squad leader. And Tam is well on her way to being squad leader when her buddy Blondie, whose name I forget, tries to one-up her and gets damaged for his troubles. And he ends up careening towards the Star Destroyer. Tam saves his bacon. However, this bacon will not be cooked and eaten with pleasure, as Gulag Sergeant is displeased with her heroic actions, and she has to learn to not look out for number one there. So I think that's pretty much the episode. Anything to add?
I think that was it. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Random notes. A couple great quotes in this episode. I believe it's Tora that calls Kazs a catastrophe.
No, that was Hype.
Yeah, that was classic. I like that.
Perfect.
Wish I had a friend named Kazs.
I'm just glad other people are catching on to it.
My note is catastrophe. Got him. And then there was a really cool exchange between Freya and Griff when they're doing their training. And Freya says, I didn't know Imperial pilots were so concerned about one another, Griff. And Griff responds with, yeah, we weren't. That's why we lost. And I think that's kind of like a cool... I don't even want to say throwback, but it's totally a throwback to the end of the Empire. And like a reminder that he is an Imperial pilot, but that doesn't mean that he's bad people's. Yeah. Which I thought was cool. And I actually have another thing about that sort of thing later in this particular reading of things.
I really like that quote as well, and that was actually one of my favorite lines in the show.
Another quote from Hype, where Hype just shouts at him when Kazs says he's going to be his wing leader. I hope you know what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm like, that kind of sums up the opposite of what Yeager and Kazs are trying to teach. Everything else I have is long story stuff. So, did you have any notes?
I liked getting more time with the Aces. I always thought that the show was going to be more geared towards the Aces, and then it wasn't. And now it kind of had... I like that we got some time with them. I really, really liked the flying in this episode. It was really, really well done. I was really interested and enjoyed that the training remotes used by the First Order were X-Wings. Yeah. That was cool. There were a couple nuggets of First Order lore that got dropped. In this and the last episode, the numbers thing, which we'll talk about in a bit, always wearing your helmet, how they train their pilots, that sort of thing. I really enjoyed it. This was the strongest of the episodes for me, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think that's it for my quick notes.
One of the things that I remember mentioning to you in Discord that I forgot to write down here is that this episode, the training montage, reminded me a lot of the old X-Wing and Rebel Assault games from Lucasfilm from back in the late 90s, where they're just kind of like going out and just trying to learn to fly aircraft.
Go fly in this canyon.
Yeah, in a canyon, or through a canyon filled with obelisks, or through a canyon in space. And it just gave me that vibe, and that gave me some good feels.
Do a barrel roll.
Don't do a barrel roll.
Use the boost to get through.
Use
the brake.
Don't barrel roll in a T-16. You can't do it, and you're just going to crash into the wall, and then your 3 lives will be up, and then you'll have to start the game over.
That's fair.
Rebel Assault was brutal. Yeah. So, my long story notes here. So, Yeager and Captain Doza. They get along real good. They plan real good together. And I thought that was kind of cool. I still think it's kind of cool. I may have touched on this before, but I really do like the narrative they're pushing with Captain Doza and Yeager's friendship and mutual respect.
Yep.
Something that commonly gets lost in these multi-generational stories is that people can change. Yeager knows that Doza was an Imperial. Doza knows that Yeager was a rebel. They both work with Ace Griff, who was an Imperial pilot. 30 years after the Galactic Civil War, a lot of people have moved on. And in the words of Captain Malcolm Reynolds, war's long done. We're all just folk now. And that in one of my fun notes that I've been sending to you constantly, probably didn't help that Mon Mothma declared all Imperial officers war criminal after the Declaration of Surrender was signed.
Yeah, I got Ian's opinions brewing on that particular little tidbit.
Though the Wikipedia page on that has changed to be a lot more lenient than what I thought it was.
Yeah,
but still. It did say all Imperial officers, and then it was changed to all Imperial officers that didn't sign or didn't agree to follow the rules of the treaty. Mm. And then it was all those officers, I'll see above, and all non-combat officers were exempted.
Yeah.
So my fun joke to Ian constantly about how I was a lieutenant in charge of the waste disposal unit on Scarif or whatever, and now I'm a war criminal doesn't hold as much water. But I just find
You're still a war criminal.
Still a war criminal.
Yeah, you probably used Jedi to scrub your floors.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Specifically.
Like
midi-chlorians get the dirt out.
Hair. Yeah.
One thing that I'm really enjoying about this series that I didn't really think that they would go into, especially it being more geared towards children and the politics of what people have done in the past. I didn't think they would touch on that just because it's kind of an adult theme, I would say. They'd have to go into it a little bit more for it to make sense to kids. But if you're an older fan that knows the significance of Doza being an Imperial and Yeager being a rebel, I think it's kind of cool to show that 30 years later, people just kind of want to move on with their lives.
Right.
And I've been really, really enjoying that back and forth between them.
And if you think about it too, there was no break point in between the Clone Wars and the Imperial Civil War, right? Order 66 happened, and the Emperor took control, and almost immediately there were people going, nah. There was no period of reflection for those people to kind of look back and be like, yeah, you know what? Both sides had, we didn't want to do... This war was a bad thing, There was no time for those wounds to heal, unlike in this particular show, where it shows that there are people who are going to hold on to the past and want to recreate it, a la the First Order. There are the people who are going to fight against that, a la the Resistance, and then there are the people who just want their kids to grow up in a galaxy that isn't at war. Yeager and Doza.
Captain Doza. There you go. You got it. You got there.
Yeah.
Another aspect of that, it takes place in the Unknown Regions, which has kind of always been known as outside of Republic control, outside of Empire control, outside of, I won't say First Order control because they started there, but it's always been where you go when you don't want to be under the foot of a government of any kind. And it kind of reminds me, again, of Firefly, where Captain Malcolm Reynolds, who fought for the rebels, basically just took off to the Outer Rim to try to get away from the things that reminded him of the defeat and to kind of just move on with himself.
Right.
And cool other sci-fi parallels. It's so weird that sometimes certain sci-fi tropes annoy us.
Right.
And then certain sci-fi tropes are endearing.
Yep.
And
that's
Star Wars at the moment.
That's tropes, man.
So yeah, anyway, cool.
Yeah.
Cool back and forth. The other thing I had, or unless you have something to add to that. Okay. The other thing I have is about Tam's side stories that I alluded to earlier in this segment. I think that her side stories are really good for pacing of the episodes.
Agreed.
This episode seems to crap. These are my notes word for word. This episode seems to crap all over my last thing about the First Order not wanting individuals. It seems like now they are trying to say the First Order wants hotshot fly persons in the air. Story-wise, it's a great contrast to what Yeager and Kazs are trying to teach the Aces, which is why I don't mind it too much, and I'm really enjoying the 2 story arc episodes so far. It just seems to me that having a swarm of individuals that are also brainwashed into being not I may have confused myself.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that having a swarm of individuals that are also brainwashed into not being an individual is just bad psychology.
See, now, here's my take on that, because I think it's a little different from yours. I didn't think the point of Tam being reprimanded was that they want everybody to be a hotshot. I think what they want is for them to focus on the mission and only the mission and not care about your fellow pilots.
Yeah. And that absolutely makes sense to me.
And that is more in line with the brainwashing.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of that is he got shot because the pilot that she went after got shot because he got in the crosshairs of another pilot.
Right.
And it seemed like they were kind of encouraging that. Your point totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And how I can allow myself to live with this fact.
Because she's the Gulag sergeant basically just says, if he was dumb enough to get in your way, screw him. Mm-hmm. Like, don't worry about it. If he dies serving the First Order, he dies. Yeah.
And one thing we kind of talked about before recording this is one of the things I was upset mostly about in that whole situation is that they were upset that she saved the life of a pilot who costs money to train, saved a starfighter, which costs money, and then saved the damage to the capital ship he was about to crash into, which I believe cost money. Ian, can you
confirm? That's a pretty hefty credit sum right there.
So I just that's just like a dumb thing. Or it's faking
Moncal Flan.
Moncal Flan, there you go.
Yeah, it's going to cost all the Moncal Flan.
But so I thought that was funny. I thought it was funny that I was upset with that.
Yeah, no, like from that angle, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And then one random side note on that is I'm pretty sure that Tam did the same thing that got Han Solo kicked out of the academy. So if you watch the Solo deleted scenes, he basically he's in a tribunal or a court-martial. It's explaining how he broke formation to save the life of another pilot, and then they get all mad at him, and then he gets transferred to the infantry. So I think that was just a clever way of the writing team to sneak that little bit of Star Wars back into Star Wars. So thank you, writing team.
Yep. Cool.
And is that's it for now?
I think that's it for now.
Cool. So overall, what do you think about the season?
It's only been 3 episodes. I'm hopeful in the fact that, I wasn't quite into the first 2 episodes, but the 3rd episode really caught my interest. And so I think that, and also talking with you helps to kind of just like, get a little deeper into it, analyze it a little bit more, and look forward to what's coming up. So, no, overall, I'm looking forward to continuing it, looking at it more. I'm not going to say it's my most anticipated Star Wars thing this year, not with Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker coming out. But I'm still having a good time with it. I enjoy watching it, and if you're a Star Wars fan, if you're caught up with Mando, go check out the first season of Resistance. It's on Disney Plus as well, and it's a great introductory series for kids as well.
Absolutely.
And it holds a lot of good lore nuggets for you lore boys out there like myself. Yeah. Anything final to add there, John?
I'm excited about this season. I'm excited that it's the last season, like I said in my intro. Not because I'm excited for the show to go off the air, but because the stakes are so much higher knowing that it has to end.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to so much in this episode, or the season, because the first season, it was all on the Colossus, so it kind of felt a lot of hurry up and wait. We know something's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually. Hang out and see if it happens. But now they've been thrust into it. I'm now beginning to confuse parts of upcoming episodes with parts now from the recent episodes, so I'm going to try not to go too much into that.
Yeah, spoilers, man.
But so far I've been enjoying it, especially 2 and 3, or episodes 2 and 3. They kind of started the whole picking up the pace of the plot.
Yep.
With the Aces knowing the Aces failing to do, not failing, but not being good enough.
They done be bad at fights.
So then they have to go train. And then so I'm excited to see what happens next. Like, okay, now they're trained because this is a cartoon and you only need 1 training session to become good at anything.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Fine. It's fine. I don't care.
It's called a montage.
Montage. A Moncal montage.
Oh, Moncal montage.
So yeah, I'm just
full of
I've
flan.
got
high hopes.
High hopes. I got good feels on this season.
Good.
It'll be interesting to see I mean, obviously what happens, but if they go on and if this is the last season of Resistance, but just the beginning of a new Star Wars title.
Sure.
Because I'm sure they're going to do something that takes place between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. And I'm wondering if they're going to use these characters and just rebrand the show. So it's like the last episode of Resistance, but then it's the first episode of... the first episode of Resistance Reborn or something. I don't know. My brain done.
I don't think that there's going to be much in between those two movies yet, just because of how soon it is to Rise of Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll let it sit and marinate a bit before coming back and revisiting that time period.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, that I'm not saying like right away.
Yeah. No,
I
get you, but
I don't think anyone would have expected that there was going to be two different Clone Wars cartoons.
No,
sort of thing.
Yeah, after the
Tartakovsky.
Thank you. This is like the
Stormtrooper.
The Aaron.
You doing all right, buddy?
Eichenreich.
My brain seems to be shutting down.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just bad at words. Like, this is not new to tonight. Like I was trying to say, the Alden Ehrenreich thing.
Mm-hmm.
How I kept calling him like Aaron Alden Eichenreich. Alden Eichenreich or whatever I kept calling him. So, yeah. But, so I'm looking forward to it. If you are looking forward to hearing more about it, go ahead and watch the next couple episodes as we will be reviewing them soon. Thank you for joining us for the first Resistance Recon of the second season and this episode of Hoth Topics, a podcast about Star Wars. Please go ahead and give us an email at Hothpod or a tweet on the Twitters at Hothpod. And the email is at hothpod@gmail.com. Oh boy, great ending. Leave it in. We're doing it live.
Yeah.
Hothpod@gmail.com.
You seem to have just brain broke.
Yep.
Midway through.
Completely just done.
You got excited about wings.
Yep, I did get excited about wings. It also doesn't help that we are doing 2 days of recording in a row, and I don't think my brain was prepared for that. Yes, but go ahead, and if you have a question or comment or suggestion for another episode, go ahead and hit us up on Twitter at Hothpod or send us an email at hothpod@gmail.com. If you would like to get any more episodes or articles or other things that we've done, you can go ahead to our website, hothtopicspodcast.com. Also, be sure to go ahead and check out the Kessel Toy Run. Links will be in the description below and on our site. Please check them out. They are a wonderful charity. And if you do donate to them and you heard about it from us, please let us know. We would love to give you a shout out on the show. I have been your host, Ian, whose internal circuits are shutting down. I'm going to power down now and recharge. Joining me has been John.
You totally messed up the delivery of that. Usually, joining me has been, and then I don't say anything, and then you go, "That's been John." You done messed that up. That bit's over. You're done. You're done.
And that was John. Bringing it back. I saved it. Oh, God, this is going to be a disaster. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next time. I need something. I don't know what it is. Yeah, sleep, food.
Sleep food.